Remind me, why does one unrealistic event ruin Omori for some people? Listen, it's time to have a conversation. I've expressed my love for the game in so many ways, and other people have as well. But I've always seen people who are, quote, fans of the game, or just massive critics, always bringing up the core truth, revealed in the truth sequence, of course, as an unrealistic event. I'm sorry, when was something being moderately unrealistic supposed to ruin a game's entire narrative? A video game's narrative. I mean, it's a video game for a reason. Omori is a 20-plus hour masterpiece, which was built to convey forgiveness, friendship, and above all else, hope. It's such an inspiring story and has touched so many people's lives, and some people, maybe you watching this video, discredit the entire game because of Sonny Basil faking Mari's death as a suicide. I never really thought too hard about the truth being unrealistic, and to be honest, I never really thought that it was a debate that even mattered. Most games are mainly gameplay focused, but similar to movies, story games are built for one reason: to tell a story, to focus on one core truth. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what happens around that core truth. If you've played the game and got inspired by its narratives and the truth of hope that it talks about, then the game has accomplished its goal. As far as most stories are concerned, specifically stories that are built to tell a story, if you got something out of it, then it doesn't matter what even happened around it. Some stories are meant to have world building as a genuine part of the story, but for games like Omori, setting out to tell a story involving a relatively small cast, and then succeeding in establishing its narratives, it's really all it cares for. World building doesn't really matter for Omori since it's set in real life, but that's besides the point. I don't really know when being totally 100% realistic became a requirement for Omori to successfully tell its story, and I sure as hell don't know when people started to discredit the game because of one thing that did not make sense. If you're playing the game as a genuine critic who's looking for things wrong with the game, then you're better off never touching Omori because you obviously won't get the experience it's trying to give you, i.e. a story about hope and about a better life. Looking at any game through the lens of the narrative will always tell a better story and always have more of an impact than just being a critic and having your enjoyment dragged down because of one thing you did not like. Almost no stories that are told in fiction are realistic in every single way when you look at it thoroughly. Of course, there's nothing wrong with playing a game with an open mind and spotting things that can be improved upon. It's just that looking too heavily into one thing you dislike will drag down any experience for you, no matter what it is. Omori is not the absolute peak of realism either, even ignoring the truth. I know going into people's houses unprompted and then helping them with random side quests is not truly realistic, but that's not really where topics of interest are held, of course. Since the truth is so important, it's obviously going to have more debates surrounding its realism and how it impacts the story because of how important it is to the story. Honestly, I can't really understand how thinking that the truth is unrealistic serves to undermine its main narrative so significantly. If you actually think that, I encourage you to just replay the game. And I do mean replay, not watch a video. Replay it. Experience it for yourself. Experience the narrative and what it talks about. Experience the hope that the game gives. And just think, is it really worth undermining all of this just because the truth is unrealistic? I encourage you to look past whatever gripes you may have and find it within yourself to appreciate the message of hope that the game provides. Yes? Did you say it is? Okay, I'm cutting to the chase. This is what you're actually here for. If I haven't softened at least your disdain towards the truth and how it ruins the game, quote, then I'm gonna do it by force. If Napoleon won't do it, then I will. If 20 plus hours of careful narrative crafting is blown away by the truth and how it's unrealistic, then I'm about to convince you how realistic it actually is, and it's more realistic than you think. To be clear, not every single argument people have will 100% easily, fully, concretely be debunked, but all it takes for most people is to have an at least feasible way that something happened that could also happen in real life to change their mindset and make them think, well, I guess it could technically have happened that way. After all, almost every single story ever told will need some unlikely elements to present themselves in order to make the story work or create a narrative, such as inspiring hope or most underdog stories. If you're someone who wants fully concrete, 100% airtight evidence and reasoning with full historical data to prove that what I'm about to say can happen all the time, then all I have to say to you is to put the mouse and keyboard away and never touch a story game ever again. You'll never enjoy story games with that mindset. You will forever be caged by your own desire as to what a game should always be, and you will never experience a true emotional catharsis or meaningful story. As I said, most people will want a feasible way that something can happen, and this is what I'm going to provide. Now, let me stop right here for a second. Before I go on, hey YouTube, this is all hypothetical and does not suggest real-life behavior that should be taken, nor does it give advice on how to commit crimes and get away with it. This is simply and completely referring to an in-game scenario that did not happen in real life and is kept entirely within the realms of fiction. We good? Okay, moving right along now. Problem number 1, the parents. This is something that I have to get out of the way first, as it'll set the stage for future arguments that people have, and how I'll argue against them. The bottom line is that the parents knew. Sunny's mom and dad both knew that Mori's death was not an accident. This is not a new or shocking theory by any means, and it is somewhat accepted. Both the mom and dad have lines of dialogue supporting this theory. In the truth sequence, Sunny's mom says, "My only daughter is gone, and you are my only son. I can't lose you as well." This can absolutely mean, and I personally agree with this one, is that Sunny's mom knew Mori's death was not an accident and did not want Sunny to be taken away by the police. Most mothers would want to protect their child under any circumstances, and this scene shows the most dire circumstance possible, protecting her son from the law. This is also supported by the scene of Sunny's dad saying, "Stay away, you are not my son." There's realistically no way to interpret this scene other than the fact that Sunny's dad was unwilling to show any sympathy towards his son after what happened. That is why he's not around at any point in the game, or even mentioned at all in the game. The bottom line is that the parents of Sunny knew that Mori's death wasn't an accident, and decided to protect Sunny from the law. Sunny's dad could not live with him after what happened, and his mom continued to live as a shell of her former self, which is why she comes off as extremely apathetic and uncaring throughout the entire game. One big example of this is refusing to stay with her traumatized son, leaving him all alone in the house for days, giving him expired steak, leaving when the power is out, etc. This is a pretty widely accepted theory, and isn't outlandish by any means. Protecting Sunny from what exactly? Not wanting to lose him to suicide, I get it, but why would the game show us something that we'd obviously know in this position if it weren't meant to signify something bigger? This establishes Sunny's parents as wanting to protect him from the law. Just like with any theory ever, it's connected to other theories relating to other aspects of the same topic, so agreeing with this theory is required for the rest of the explanation. In totality, it's more likely than not that this theory is true, so just keep that in mind. Now, we move on to the smoking gun. Problem 2, the autopsy. Yes, the autopsy would reveal that the death was not by suicide, but there doesn't always need to be an autopsy. Now, this is a very nuanced point, and I did do some research and a lot of ChatGPT questions on this point, so I'll get it out of the way. Autopsies are not a universally required thing across all reports of death, including suicide, but autopsies are much more likely to happen in events regarding suicide, especially so from a death by hanging. So is that it? Would the 100% will always happen autopsy conclude that Mori did not die from a hanging? No, not 100% of the time. From what I gathered, the event that an autopsy would not happen is rare, but possible. In most cases of death by hanging, autopsies are performed, or at least a minor autopsy on the crime scene. Even with the very realistic possibility that Sunny's parents would attempt to protect him following the legal procedures, a full autopsy, less likely so for a minor autopsy but still likely, both of those would confirm that the death was not by suicide. In this case, it is game over for Sunny and his protection. However, what I haven't mentioned is that there can be religious exemptions from autopsies that can be waived to prevent an autopsy from happening. Let's not forget that a lot of Faraway Town's houses have Bibles, and that there's also a big church in the town. So, Sunny's parents might have been religious in some way, or at least be able to claim to be religious to waive a possible autopsy. Even so, it might not apply to every single case, but it matters because it's at least possible that an autopsy would not happen. Not impossible, not severely unlikely, not a 0.5% chance, but that it's simply the exception and that it is possible. There will legally be some sort of investigation that will take place, but keep in mind that Sunny's parents would have all the time in the world to cover up portions of the crime scene as the body is hanging in the backyard and would not be discovered until the parents publicly reveal it. And I'm being totally honest here, you can do research for yourself, and every source that I found regarding autopsies on corpses via suicide says that an autopsy may be performed. Not will, may. that means that an autopsy might not happen, and has likely not happened before in the real world in one of these cases. This is all that some people need to believe that the truth sequence is plausible. This is all assuming the game takes place in America, by the way, which it most definitely does. Anyway, to end off this segment, and to recap, it's possible that an autopsy would not have to be performed, and the obvious signs of blunt force trauma would not be discovered. Considering that the waiving of an autopsy due to religious reasons would definitely include the entirety of Mari's body not being exposed to any medical examiners, the obvious bruises would not be discovered. In all totality though, it's likely that an autopsy would be performed, but it's just that it's possible for one to not happen, and that it's not insanely impossible or something that would never happen. It's the exception, which implies that it's less common, but it can still happen. This is all considering the amount of time Sunny's parents would have to stage the scene and attempt to mask areas that could raise enough doubt to legally require an autopsy. And, in this case, they would quite literally have all the time in the world to mask the crime scene. Again, successfully staging a crime scene is rare, but once again, it's possible and has happened plenty of times in the real world. Some people watching this are definitely not convinced that all the events in a video game are unlikely to happen in real life. And, to that I say, yeah. That's what a video game is, duh, a story game, at least. Not every single event that happens is going to be more likely than not to happen, but it's because it's a story game, and stories often need that to create a compelling narrative. Also, to be clear, laws on autopsies differ between states, with some being less strict on required autopsies and some being more strict. If everything in this section sounds like one big tinfoil hat theory, then just assume the game takes place in Arkansas and move on with your life. Problem 3. How did Basil know how to tie a noose? Wait, why is this even a problem to begin with? If you're worried about why Basil knows how to tie a noose, then you're looking way too hard into the events of the truth. Yes, this is a real argument I have heard, and if it sounds outlandish, it's because it is. It's really not that hard to assume that some children just know how to do specific things, and I really do mean specific things. We all know that one childhood friend who is able to do some insanely weird things with like a yo-yo, and they tell you they just practiced for a few hours and learned how to do it. Magic tricks are also an example too. You can easily learn how to do them for no reason. Heck, I used to be able to use a yo-yo. Nothing crazy though. Now I can't really use them at all, but that's besides the point. If you want a real, plausible reason why Basil could tie a noose, let me give it to you. Gardening.
That's it?
It's not crazy to assume that Basil could have used rope to hang his plants from parts of a room or from the ceiling. Ropes can also be used in this method called drip irrigation to help you filter our water, which I've literally never heard of, but that's another plausible example. And, to give one more possible example, Basil could have been depressed before he met the group in the first place. We have no idea what he was like before he met the group, but considering how nervous he was when meeting them for the first time, it's entirely possible that he was just lonely. It's natural to think that he could have been suicidal due to that, and that he knew how to tie a noose because of that. Problem 4. Why did Basil think to fake her death as a hanging? Okay, this one's just flat out being overcritical. I don't really understand how this conundrum, quote, is meant to cancel out the enjoyment from the 20 plus hours of Omori that you've already played and grown fond of. I don't know. Maybe Basil just thought of it. It's like really not that hard to understand. Let me lay it out for you. Basil sees his best friend accidentally kill someone, knowing it's an accident. Sunny and Basil then take Mari up to her bed, pleading that she'll wake up. Because of the time it takes for rigor mortis to set in, that being around 2 hours, that means Sunny and Basil stayed in the room for around 2 hours, painstakingly hoping that Mari would wake up. I'll elaborate on this point later, by the way. She doesn't wake up, of course, so Basil decides to protect his friend. Keep in mind, both Sunny and Basil are 12, and Basil has never had a friend closer than Sunny. Now, if you've got 2 hours to think about how to stage a death and shirk the blame off of someone you care about, suicide is the obvious method. I'm just being realistic here. Keep in mind, Basil had 2 entire hours to think about how to do it. Keep in mind, we have no idea how Basil was, mentally speaking, before he met the group. With the situation regarding his parents and being so lonely, it's entirely possible that he was depressed beforehand, like what I said earlier, and that this idea was already in his mind before he connected with his found family. So, to answer the question, he just thought about it. It's really not that hard to understand. Problem 5. A fall like that wouldn't kill, so let me stop you right there. It would. It's not likely, but it would. That's literally the entire point of the truth, is that she was hit in just the right spot and died because of one accident. I don't get people who say this wouldn't happen, but that's the whole point. It would happen, but it's unlikely. What happened to Mari is more than likely a cervical fracture, one of the 7 vertebrae that connect the neck to the brainstem in the head. Cervical fractures range from death on impact to about a minute or 2 later after paralysis. Easy. To write this point home even more, with the nature of staircases and Mari being pushed down, it's highly likely that she could have landed multiple times and fractured more than just one vertebra in her spine, which would absolutely kill without question. Once again, I will stress that this does not usually happen when falling down a staircase, but I will also once again say that that's the entire point of the sequence, that she landed in just the right spot. This is medically backed as well. She could have easily landed on her ribs or fractured her arm and leg, but she happened to land on her neck or skull, which resulted in a cervical fracture, killing on impact or at least a minute later. So, in conclusion, yes, a fall like that could kill someone. Not likely, but it absolutely could. And this also debunks a certain fan theory relating to Mari still being alive when she was hung and dying of asphyxiation. Let me disprove it. This person is not breathing. She died on impact, or at least a minute or 2 later, after making contact with the stair or the floor. Also, I want to go over one last thing. No, the photos are not genuine photos that Basil took. Those are simply snapshots of his memory regarding the incident. How did they get into Sunny's mind? Either Sunny's imagination, or Basil explaining to Sunny what he saw during the 2 hours they spent in Sunny and Mari's room. Yes, it was 2 hours because of the time it takes rigor mortis to set in, which is what opened Mari's eye when she was hanging. Mari died either on contact or shortly after falling down the stairs because of the "this person is not breathing" line, so she was not alive when being hung. This is the only time regarding the initial incident and the fake hanging that would make sense for them to remain in one place for a certain amount of time, thinking what to do next, therefore allowing time for rigor mortis to set in. It could also relate to Basil's thoughts following Sunny into his dreams, which relates to the whole white egret orchid in this video I made regarding the possible existence of the supernatural. So, to recap. 1. Sunny's parents knew that Mari's death wasn't by suicide and chose to protect him. 2. Sunny's parents were able to weasel their way out of an autopsy, which is unlikely but possible. 3. Basil knew how to tie a noose, likely from past experiences. 4. Basil thought about faking Mari's death as a suicide to shirk the blame from Sunny, likely from the hours they spent planning about what to do next. 5. Mari unluckily hit her head in just the right spot to have a cervical fracture, resulting in near instantaneous death. Alright, that's every argument I've heard relating to the truth being confirmed as being impossible. However, it is possible, just unlikely, and that's how it is for stories in general. Now, it's a lot easier to just ignore the realism the game provides or attempts to provide, and just appreciate the story, appreciate what it tells you, appreciate what it implies, and appreciate the hope it gives you for a better life. Some people aren't that simple though, so this video is for them. Anyway, all of what I said is true, and I'm entirely confident in that. If people want to continue to argue with me, then they're missing the entire point of this video. The point of this video was to convince people that the truth, while being unrealistic, which I totally 100% acknowledge, is plausible and not impossible. And that is exactly what I did. This is not subjective, this is completely objective. This is made specifically for the people who are held back from enjoying the game and what it tells you because of the impossible nature of the truth, and I have proved that it is not impossible. So, maybe, just maybe, I can help someone enjoy this 20+ hour masterpiece a bit more. Thanks for watching.